We'll dismiss the kids, go to Kids Corner. We are starting a new series that will be going through the fall. We're calling it Landscapes. And there it is. It's called Landscapes. Starting in 4 weeks. 4 weeks from tomorrow, there's a number of us from the church that will be going through Israel together. And the first place we're going to visit is Caesarea. And this is a picture of Caesarea. Behind me, there's a number of things that maybe happened in Caesarea that I could have chosen today. First of all, I want to say location is important. This happened to me back in 2014. Some of you remember 9 years ago, I went to Africa for a couple weeks. And there was an evening, there was an indoor shopping area, like a mall that's in Nairobi. And I was there at that mall, and I was just walking. And I was walking down the long corridor, and there was a gentleman coming toward me, and I got about 10 feet away from me. Never seen him, never met him. And right when I got to him, he kind of smiled and said, "You're from the Midwest." And he could tell by the way I was walking that I was from the Midwest. Location is important. I've heard it said that there are people that exist in this country that when confronted with the opportunity for a carbonated beverage, will sit there and look at someone else and say, "What kind of soda do you want?" There's still other people in this country, because of where they grew up, will look at you and say, "I'd like a Coke," and they'll go, "Well, what kind?" They're from the South. Location makes a difference. I grew up in Fair Park. You don't know what that means, but Fair Park, most of the houses look like this. You don't want to lean against a wall too heavily, you might go through. It was a subdivision that stuck out of the north end of town, and all the houses went up pretty quick, and most of my friends lived in places that looked a lot like this. My house looked a lot like that, except it did have a garage, an attached garage, one car. That would have been the only difference, but that's about the size. There were times you had to go outside to change your clothes. There just wasn't a lot of room. The joke was you had to maybe go outside to change your mind. It wasn't that bad, but it was close. Growing up here is something I always carry with me. There's sometimes, always at some point, a little chip somewhere on a shoulder, because we were very aware of the kids in town with money, and when we'd have city championships, whether it's Little League, which we won, or junior high, which we won, in football, which we won, in basketball, which we won. See, it's still there. See, Taft was the junior high that I went to, but it was also the junior high you didn't want to go to. Around 5th grade or 6th grade, my mom determined that her boys were not going to go to Taft, so they were going to, her and my stepdad, fairly new, they were going to move out to a house out in the county, and I told them, have a good time. I'd live with my best friend around the corner, and we stayed. I was aware of that status. I was aware of where I was and how the neighborhoods were viewed. That was not the neighborhood my mom wanted to live in. It was the one she could afford. And so that's where we lived. It turned out to be not bad. Let me run down just our block. Ronnie Salyer went into the Marines for 20 years. Sherman Jones was in the Marines for 20 years and retired. Danny Sipes had a full ride baseball scholarship for Bowling Green State University. My friend Bryant is a school teacher in the Plainfield, Illinois School District. Billy Main, he's probably William on his business card, but he's Billy to me. Billy Main is like a president of a major steel company and lives in Alabama. The neighborhood did okay. We always carry around a little bit of that, though, in us. Caesarea is the first place we're going to see in Israel. I'm going to read Acts chapter 10. And so this is Peter. Peter's in Caesarea, and he says, while talking with him, Peter went inside and found a large gathering of people. He said to them, you are well aware that it is against our law for a Jew to associate with or visit a Gentile. But God has shown me that I should not call anyone impure or unclean. So when I was sent for, I came without raising any objection. May I ask why you sent for me? Later, skipping down a couple verses, verse 34 of chapter 10, then Peter began to speak. I now realize how true it is that God does not show favoritism, but accepts from every nation the one who fears him and does what is right. I am so excited that I could read that clearly in the back of the sanctuary this week. This is Cornelius. Cornelius was the man who, there's an interesting phrase. It says in Acts 10, he was a God-fearer. Now, that's one of these words that we don't understand what that means. At that time, if you were a Gentile, if you were from some other part of the empire, and somehow you came across Israel's God, you came across some Jews and decided, this is the God that I want to worship, you did, this is what the writer of Acts would call you, a God-fearer. But it also meant that you were a Gentile who just happened to be attracted to Israel's God. The other thing was he was a Roman soldier. This, from two different angles, interests me. First, that how a Roman soldier who was so connected to the empire, so connected to Caesar, and that already at this time, we were 70 years after they had started calling the emperor the Son of God in Rome, that this Roman soldier was already worshiping Israel's God. So he had to take a considerable step outside of probably what most of the people in his unit did to worship Israel's God. The second thing is, imagine you're part of the Palestine in the first century. And what it would have meant to see a Roman soldier coming. You did not get read any Miranda rights. You could not go up and say, you can't talk to me that way. I know what my rights are. I have this right. Yeah, be quiet. Boom, hit you in the head. This would have been reason not only for the Palestinians to have reason to not trust him, but now we have from his perspective, with his own men, he's worshiping Israel's God. And somewhere, Cornelius came across a Jewish believer who not only was Jewish, but believed in Jesus Christ. If we read Acts 10, God spoke to Cornelius. And Cornelius wanted to hear more about Jesus. He became aware that Peter was in the area, in Caesarea. And he said, I want to speak to Peter. And he sent men to go talk to Peter and to bring Peter back, to ask him if he would come back and talk to him. Put yourself in Peter's shoes just for a second. A Roman soldier sent men and comes to you and says, hey, the Roman guy, the soldier who has troops under his command wants to talk to you. I'm out. If he can find me. So one of the problems is that why would Peter respond at that time? Here's the second problem. The problem is God doesn't recognize Gentiles. They are less than desirable. We all know why. They eat pork. Let me come clean. I did too last night. It was delicious. They don't honor the Sabbath like we do. They don't have the law. God gave our people the law. Let me also give you a little heads up about Peter. We know that at some point, Peter didn't want to associate with Gentiles. Read Galatians 2 sometimes. Peter has traveled with Paul and is in Galatia. Peter is sitting down with Paul at a table with Gentiles. In my mind, this is how I have it. I'm not claiming this is historically accurate. I'm just telling you this is how it is in my head. They're at this big festival. Famous Dave's has catered it. They all have the little white plastic bib with the red pig on it. And they're trading all the different sauces. And they're enjoying it. And Peter's going, I don't know where we've been. We've missed out on all this. This pulled pork is fantastic. This sauce is wonderful. And by the way, I was in Kansas City 2 weeks ago and ate at Joe's. I'm still on my barbecue high. So, so Peter's sitting there with Paul and he's getting to know all these believers. And in the middle of the meal, you can read Galatians 2. Men from James appeared. I'm not trying to cast aspersions. I know there are people, some of our brothers and sisters, who think Peter was the first. He was always in charge of the early church. He wasn't. He's clearly bending to James's opinion. James shows up. Peter sees men from James. Peter jumps up, snaps off the bib, grabs the little lemon-scented wet nap, gets about 3 of them. He's got to get all that smell of the barbecue sauce off his hands and face. And he runs over. Hey, how you doing? I'm not eating with them or nothing like that. Paul says in Galatians 2, I called him a hypocrite to his face. You were eating with them just a second ago, and now you've pulled back. Why? Just because men from James appeared? We know where Peter was at one point. That's not where Peter is right now. This gives me hope that coming out of that confrontation with Paul, that Peter realizes that he was mistaken. But there was the majority of the people thought, you, Cornelius, and all your Gentile buddies, you can worship from the edges, but you'll never be one of us. We're glad you finally wandered your way into our God. Just don't think that you're ever going to be one like we are. But Cornelius sends for Peter. Peter had no idea who this guy was. And like I said before, had every reason to avoid him. If you asked me to predict, I would predict that these would be like 2 ships that pass in the night. Peter going one way, Cornelius going the other. They'd never really met. These men are looking for this guy called Peter. They find him. Peter had to ask, why in the world would I go with this Roman soldier? This could not work out well for me. One thing I like about the story, if you go and read through Acts 10, it seems that God was busy before Cornelius' men found Peter. First, he was talking to Cornelius and was preparing Cornelius for the meeting. Secondly, Acts 10 is the chapter where Peter's on a roof and he falls asleep. And he has a dream, and the dream is he sees all the animals come down, and God says, Peter, are you hungry? Eat. And he goes, no, these are unclean. I can't eat. I see pigs there. I see this. And God says in the dream, don't call anything unclean that I have made. Peter knew this wasn't about food. Peter met the men looking for him, and these men simply gave him an invitation. The guy that we answered to is looking for you. We'd like to have a conversation. And Peter responded and went to people that he did not know. Let me just give a principle here. We have had the last few years an overreaction. Now, I said it 3 years ago, and people got a little upset with me, and I'm sorry you did, and I'm not coming off of it at all. We went way overboard on this concept of safety, and people got absolutely damaged in the process. That cannot even be argued today. Educational goals, things that happened in the workforce, supply chain, inflation. I can go on and on and on. It was as predictable to see coming as the sun rising in the east. Let me just give you a little simple statement. Safety tends to not work in the kingdom. If God asks you to do something, typically there's a risk to it. I would say always, but I don't want to overstate. Pretty close to always. It might be always. When anything of value happens, someone takes a risk. If a big bridge gets built, someone's taking a risk. Remember those pictures of the skyscrapers in Manhattan in the 30s? Those workers sitting on the steel beams eating lunch? Someone's taking a risk. Remember the Hoover Dam? Someone took a risk. Some of you this summer have driven across the Mackinac Bridge. Someone took a risk. When God asks us to do something of value, somewhere along the way, faith needs to be exercised. It's a lesson I think we have to learn and sometimes relearn and relearn again. What do you mean risk? You have to risk being rejected. You have to risk being ignored. You have to risk having someone look at you and then maybe their value of you changes for a short term. You have to risk being marginalized. You have to risk your sense of comfort. Some of us remember when you went to college and you got dropped off in a new place. Maybe you knew your roommate, maybe you didn't. And in the period of a week or two, you had to reorient to a whole new group of friends. In this situation, what's interesting, with all the risk, and Peter had a lot of risk going to Cornelius, God was preparing the way for every single person involved. God was talking to Cornelius, God was talking to Peter, God was doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and if God asks us to step out and do something, can I tell you, God is doing work behind the scenes. This story still has lessons. I don't know, this picture is basically of someone being filmed. And it's like one guy who's the focus of everything, but then all behind the scenes, someone's got a microphone and a light, and I mean, all the stuff going on that's outside of the camera's viewpoint. Everything that we have so much of life that we just trust that there's stuff going on behind the scenes. I remember when I was a kid, there was a show on. You might have heard the show before. Star Trek. And I used to watch it. And these people would just walk down a hallway and walk in front of a door, and the door would open and shut behind them. And I went, like, that's even possible. They took a little thing out of their pocket and flipped it open and started talking into it. That's crazy. And all of you now, almost every day, you walk into building after building and the door opens for you and shuts behind you. And I bet if you've gone to a grocery store and that little thing, that little motion detector didn't work, I bet some of you in here have walked straight into a glass door expecting it to open. I bet somebody in here has gotten on an airplane, a metal tube that flies at 500 miles per hour to someplace else, and got on this thing, and the in-flight Wi-Fi didn't work, and you would go, oh, this is ridiculous. Who could put up with something like this? Just think about that for a second. There's always so much going on behind the scenes that we just take for granted. And we don't trust God to be doing the same thing. Here's some lessons from the story. One of the things that attracted me to this story in Caesarea. The first thing is, there is no one that's outside of God's reach. I am proud to be part of a tradition that will look people dead in the eye and tell you every human being is worthy to participate in God's grace. No one is excluded. There's not some varsity team that's been picked ahead of time and everybody else is just, oh well. God is intensely interested in you, whoever you are, and whatever you're doing, God is interested in you. No one is unclean or unworthy. There's a group of people that would have looked at Cornelius and said, wait a minute, he's a Roman soldier, he's the enemy, don't you dare, don't go near him. Other people would have said, he's Cornelius, he's a Gentile. No, he's not one of us, he's going to bring that bacon cheeseburger with him next time we have a meeting. Even if you've never thought about God, God has thought about you and is interested in who you are. You might be the person also, here's the other lesson, you might be the person to do something important in the life of an unlikely person. And you may have no idea when that was. 3 weeks ago, I did my annual summer trip. I was up in Manistee, Michigan. I was golfing. And there's a little restaurant there called Bluefish right on the main street. And earlier that day, I just posted a picture of the sunset from the night before. And someone had called me and said, hey, texted me. Hey, I see you're in Manistee. Yep, hey, enjoy the golf. What are you going to do the rest of the day? I said, we're just going out to eat. Are you going to go to the Bluefish? I said, yeah, I think so. Okay, just someone I know who's familiar with the area. So there was 3 guys. Steve was there, Steve Rossini, and there's 2 other people. And we were sitting at the table, got about halfway through the meal, and the waitress came up to our table and said, is there a Doug Ward at this table? And I said, yeah, that's me. And she said, well, just want to let you know someone has called and has paid us $100 for the meal of this table. And it was just someone that I had probably done a favor for a year or so before that I didn't think was a big deal. Apparently, they thought it was a bigger deal. That's what happened. Another lesson from this story is I want you to stay open to hearing God's voice, especially if you feel prodded to do something unlike you. Last week, the sermon was about the still small voice in Elijah. It's typical when if you love shopping and you hear a voice say, oh, go shopping and spend even more money, probably not God. If I hear a voice that says, Doug, what you need to do is you need to golf every day this week, probably not God. If any of us hear a voice, you need to be a Yankees fan, not enough of them, not God. If you hear a voice that says, who's that family across the street? There's some kids there outside. Do you know what's going on? Why don't you go befriend them? Take cookies over. Well, that might be God. But that's not like me. I'm not comfortable doing that. It might be God. You know what? I need you to start giving. And puts a dollar amount in your head. Might be God. Probably is. Because God is doing work behind the scenes always. And we don't know why. One other thing that I think is from this story is You know what? There's barriers that people feel, that sense, that they have to get over, crawl over, get around to get to Jesus Christ. Often those are barriers that we have created. A gaze of disapproval. A vocal or letting them know their sin is a little too much for us. We let them know by nonverbals that they're just not someone that we would be friends with. We often throw barriers in people's way. It is possible, some of you have heard this phrase before. Someone says, he looks like an athlete. Someone says, no, he can't walk and chew gum at the same time. You've heard that? That means not coordinated. You know what we can do in the church? We can walk and chew gum at the same time. Someone can be involved in something that is destructive. I can still love them. I can still walk through life with them. We can accompany people through life without agreeing, without aiding them in some destructive behavior. It's possible. I still go back to the conversation I had with my friend one day who had decided to leave his family. And I got the call, and I'd gone over to that house to be with him. And I was trying to convince him not to do it. And I was talking to him. I was talking to him about his family. I was talking to him about his parents. I was talking to him about what the next decade or two look like with the decision he's making. And he had a suitcase in one hand, he had a garbage bag with clothes in the others. He says, Doug, can you get the door? And I went, no. I'm not going to get the door. I'm not going to hold it open. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to talk to you. We can live with people. We can love people and walk with people, even if they do things that we see the damage coming down the road. Caesarea was a town with a heavy presence of Roman soldiers and officials, thus the name Caesar. That's the root of that town. A lot of official residences and a lot of things would have happened with the Roman government there. It was not a place I would think about reaching new people. Probably not a lot of people did either. Too many Romans there. We have to avoid the Romans to do our work. We have to keep a wide berth. And I don't know exactly what year this is. This might have been, because it doesn't tell us, it might have been before, but it might have been right at the beginning of a new emperor called Nero. Maybe you've heard of him. But God had other ideas. And because God had ideas, this was a place where something big happened. How big was it? It was so big, 2 people listened to God's voice. And it changed the arc of the church and probably changed generations of people that came after a Roman soldier named Cornelius, who not only heard God's voice but said, I need to hear more about it. And to a Peter that says, that's a Roman soldier, but I need to go and I need to be obedient to God's voice as well.